Now, for many critical thinking classes, we would conclude with the ability to evaluate other people's arguments. It's a valuable skill. It's important for democracies. It's important in virtually any profession. It's important virtually in any discipline that you might experience in your college career. But there's a significant difference between being able to find the flaws in someone else's argument and constructing your own argument in a compelling, convincing way. Now, to a certain extent, Step 8 gave you the opportunity to do that. You constructed an argument about an argument. But in Step 9, we take a significantly different stance. In Step 9, you're asked to write an argumentative essay, one that demands research, and to build an argument that you think should be persuasive to any reasonably educated, reasonably intelligent reader. Now, I strongly encourage before you embark on this step that you read in its entirety Anthony Weston's Rule Book for Arguments, which is a classic in the field and gives you some positive principles that will help you to write a compelling and complete and persuasive argument. But even if you don't do that, let's go over a few things that a good argumentative essay has. Just like with Step 8, you want a clear thesis. Not only a clear thesis, but a compelling one. In other words, if you're going to make an argument, you need to make sure that your argument is worth making, that your reader would have some reason to want to see if this claim can be made persuasive. So sometimes when I've been teaching this class, people have chosen theses that are easy to defend and therefore entirely boring to read. I had one student once who wrote an essay and the thesis was, pornography is a difficult issue. And I agreed, well, this isn't a thesis. And the student said, yes, it's a thesis. And I said, well, maybe it's a thesis, but it's boring. Why should I read an entire argument trying to convince me of something that is so profoundly obvious? So you want to choose a thesis that has a little bit of oomph, that requires some argumentative work on your behalf, that you're going to have to do some things to convince your reader that it is in fact true. Then you're going to have to use strong argumentation. We know by now what we mean by strong argumentation. You're going to want to make sure your premises pass the ARG conditions. One of the things that's interesting about this approach to me for critical thinking is that you should always be aware of the questions that I'm asking as I'm evaluating your work on any given step. So if you give me an argument, you know I'm going to be asking, are your premises acceptable? Do they matter? Are they relevant? And have you given enough evidence to really establish the validity of your conclusion? Now, because we're working on a written argument, we also want to make sure that there's strong organization. And again, you'll find that it's easier to critique someone for not being well organized than it is to be organized yourself. You want to make sure that you don't ask the things of your readers that sometimes you have been asked to do, to dig out the conclusion, to fill in a lot of unstated premises. You want to make sure that your ideas flow in a natural, logical succession so that your reader can stay with you as you build your argument. Now again, just like with Step 8, we're not going to have any jargon in these essays. These should be accessible to anyone. But they should have a depth of argumentation that we often don't see in a lot of writing. Now, for this step, there is no quiz. The assessment tool is a little bit different. You can choose your own topic as long as it can be researched and that it needs to be researched in order for the argument to be strong. But you simply can continue working on an argumentative essay until I or your instructor says that it's a strong enough argument. So you keep writing and rewriting until the argument really holds a lot of water. Of course, you should feel free to gain any advice from other people. It's incredibly important to have a multitude of readers if you're trying to come up with a piece of writing that you want to be clear and accessible. But generally speaking, your goal is to come up with an argument that respects and fulfills these particular criteria in a clear and compelling way. Work on drafts until you reach that goal, until your instructor says you've reached that goal, and then you'll see the difference between critiquing other people's work and actually producing something new and original yourself.